Hello and welcome back to Keeping the Charm in Charm City. Super excited for today's episode. So today we have Chad Williams. So Chad is serving as the executive director for the West North Avenue Development Authority, known as WANADA, as we like to call it, where he leads efforts to revitalize and transform the West North Avenue corridor in Baltimore. With the extensive experience in urban planning and community development and public policy, Chad has been at the forefront of initiatives aimed at creating equitable and sustainable growth in historically underinvested areas. His work focuses on fostering collaboration between government, community organizations, and private sector partners to drive meaningful economic development and improve quality of life for Baltimore residents. Chad's commitment to community empowerment and his visionary leadership continue to shape the future of West Baltimore. So, welcome, Chad. I'm super excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, for sure. As I always say, what's up?
What's up? What's going on?
Life is
so
good. Life is good for me.
good. So we like to start every episode the same with one question, and
All
that
right.
is, when did you fall in love with the charm in Charm City?
Oh, when I fell in love with Charm City?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I can't say that the story publicly, so I will say is when I first hung out at this spot called the Garage for a DJ hip hop competition. Two DJs were playing Biggie songs and Tupac songs, and all I had to say, it was a lot of very important people in that room along with me at the Garage spot, if you know what I'm talking
Yes,
about.
absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. So I don't know if you know this, and I'll probably get in trouble for saying this. But in like when Khalil was like in high school, him, his brothers, and friends actually had this like promoter group, and they used to go to different clubs and like do promotions, and so people will remember the Baltimore club days. So him and his friends used to be out in these streets in Baltimore, enjoying the music, and
Yeah.
having a good time. So a little history for Khalil. So I love that your history here is music, understanding kind of the culture in Baltimore.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
so what drives your passion for working in community development and specifically here in Baltimore?
Well, that's a two-part question. So, which drives me is I'm a native of DC. I grew up in Southeast DC, Berry Farms, East Capitol dwellings. I went to the University of District of Columbia. So, I grew up in some very humble environments. As I tell people, my neighborhood in Southeast DC, East Capitol dwellings, you can go to elementary school, junior high school, and we had one grocery store, and you never had to leave that community. I remember me and my homeboys, we walked from 58th Street, DC Southeast, all the way down to Georgetown. And that was an adventure for us. Like, that was just an exciting aspect. And so, DC, Baltimore, Philly, New York, they kind of have like that similar kind of East Coast vibe of just roughness, but authenticity. And so for me, I've fallen in love with Baltimore because of the people. Like, the people have been just very genuine and supportive of what I'm trying to accomplish with my team. And so for me, it's about bringing the equitable drive and the shine that Baltimore doesn't receive in the national media, in the regional media, and sadly from our own people across the country. All right, we hear all the time people that look like us beating up Baltimore. But they've never experienced Baltimore. It was a commercial that came out during the summertime that I think not Live Baltimore, or they did about opening up a crab or something, and you had discovered the crab, and that's the way Baltimore. So when you get in it, it's rough, right? It's really rough. But if you done figured out how to crack that crab open, man, and get that flavor and get that meat, that's the way
Right.
Baltimore is, right? So, man, I've been cracking the crab for a whole year now, so I'm good.
And I love that you say you're from Southeast. My best friend from college is from Southeast DC, and so just all the changes and transformations I know that's happened there specifically. So like your
Mhm.
background and growing up in DC, how does that influence how you see Baltimore and what's happening in Baltimore, what's coming in Baltimore?
Yeah, so the unfortunate thing for me is I'm sad about the gentrification that happened in DC, right? And I wouldn't say that I was part of it, but I was an observer of it, right? Obviously, my planning career, I had some work in DC, and I don't think that we did enough to make sure that we protected legacy residents. We addressed the high property tax, which now the Baltimore City is addressing now. The state of Maryland passed legislation that Senator Antonio Hayes introduced. You know, always a big champion for the city, but that was a result of Senator Antonio Hayes. And then how we did development in DC. Many of the developers that participated in this revitalization and economic promise didn't reflect the majority of the city. And at the agency that I run, as you know, I'm real intentionally public and private about who we going to award contracts and grants to. 48.3% of our grants and contracts have gone to people that reflect the demographic of the majority of the population here in Baltimore. And so those are the like three things that drive me based on my experience in DC.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so important because I think sometimes, when you think about Baltimore and DC, it's always a us and them and, who's in the DMV and, who has the best places to go out and eat, which obviously is not even a competition between Baltimore and DC, but whatever.
Now we got the
And
football team controversy going on. We both got the
football
same
team.
records.
Yeah, all of that. And I think sometimes we miss the opportunity to one see some of the things that happen as in DC as a blueprint and just kind of understanding what went well, what didn't, and be able
Yeah,
to implement and leverage that here. And also see the opportunity, right? DC
right.
was the murder capital of the world for a while there, and
That's
look and
right.
see where we are now. And when we talk about Baltimore being that crab, there's a lot of cities that went through a lot of things over the years. And if we don't pay attention, I always say, they talk about hindsight being 2020, and I love to say, if you don't know where you've been, you can't know where you're trying to get to, right? And so
Right.
using some of those cities as a blueprint is really important. So you talked about some of those legacy residents, that something that you learned from that experience in DC. How are you taking that into WANADA, in how you're engaging with the community and community members and those legacy residents in the area that is impacted by your organization?
Yeah. So when I came in this position in March of 2022, like from between March of 2022 probably until the summer of 2023, I just listened to folks.
Yeah.
Right? If you thought about it, we didn't start rolling out any plans until September of 2023. Right? I just went around to neighborhood associations, coffee meetings, tea meetings, showed up at people's houses and just listened and talked to folks, right? So that we could build a rapport of trust. And you see that trust now. Like when we rolled out, we started the comprehensive plan in September, we had 150 folks show up, and people were just shocked at that just initial number, right? And then in December, we had about 200 or 220 folks show up, right? And then in April, we had like almost 300 some folks registered to come out, more than what the city gets for its citywide comprehensive planning session. And if you think about it, each time we listened to the community, we regurgitated what we thought we heard, we confirm that with the community and then send it back again before we're finalizing it. And we're doing that through all of our processes with our building, design, site plans, our streetscape, our green space. But then we're also saying in these focus areas where we're providing significant subsidy for development and acquisition of vacant and blighted homes next to legacy residents, we'll eventually be offering them rehab assistance, right? And so, no person who's invested in Baltimore over a long period of time, and you don't have to be a developer. When I mean invest in Baltimore, that means someone who stayed in Baltimore and paid property taxes, right? So that people in the white L could benefit from it. Let me just be frank, right?
Right.
The black folks in the black butterfly stayed and were able to contribute to the investments that have gone in the white L in downtown and the harbor. And we neglect or just forget to reflect on that. And so, providing that rehab assistance to those legacy residents, but then also soon working with the SOS fund and helping individuals, get their arrears in order, their heirs in order, their estate wills in order, so that they can properly transfer their property to their descendants when they pass away, unfortunately, so those properties aren't just sitting vacant. So those are twofold approaches about the rehab and then making sure that we do estate planning with our legacy residents.
I love that. That's so important. We talk about generational wealth, getting some of those titles cleaned up and making sure folks their homes are in a position when they do pass to the next generation that, folks don't think it's overwhelming to get it done, right? Being able to invest in the folks who are there now is critical to that wealth transfer. So real quick, I just kind of want to take a step back. You talked about the comprehensive plan. We talked a lot about kind of what fuels you as you influence and create those things in partnership with the community. But let's kind of go back. What is WANADA? What's the area it's focused in? Like, let's let's go through what the West North Avenue Development Authority is all about and how it came to be.
Yeah, well, sure. So with NADA, every now and then I might slip up and say Wakanda, all right? Because we definitely try to build a Wakanda on West North Avenue. But WANADA is the state of Maryland's West North Avenue Development Authority. It's an independent economic development agency that was created in 2021 with the purpose of coming up with a comprehensive plan from the 600 to 3200 block of West North Avenue, which is all of West North Avenue, and then 2 to 3 blocks north and south of that. And so we completed a comprehensive plan that we submitted to the governor and the General Assembly in January. We're continuing to enhance that comprehensive plan by coming up with building and site plan developments, transportation, streetscape, and green space. We make sure that the city and the state do development that's in line with the comprehensive plan and is done efficiently and effectively. We provide advice to the city and the state on development activities, a clearinghouse for resources for developers that want to participate in revitalization. And, the biggest thing that everybody likes is the ability for us to initiate and fund development. And over the past year, our first fiscal year, we awarded $9.7 million in grants. And this year, we're looking to award between 13.5 to $14 million in grants to developers to revitalize, acquire vacant property, support businesses set up along West North Avenue. And then next year, we hope that we'll be able to be in a position where we can actually provide loans and then directly acquire property ourselves and then convey that to developers at no cost for development.
That's huge, right? Capital to be able to get a lot of this stuff done. And you mentioned loans in particular, between the grants and how you guys see the opportunity to be intentional with how you do grants, as well as even capital for loans. Getting money on the street is big to actually accomplishing a lot of the things that we're all talking about. It's great to talk about, but at the end of the day, capital is required. And so as you're thinking about how you are leveraging those funds, I know you work and collaborate with a lot of different entities. You talked about the Department of Transportation and the city
Mhm.
and some other entities as well. What are some of the projects and collaborative efforts you've been doing with them?
Yeah, so one thing I will add and talk about the collaborative partnerships. As you know, we advance 100% of our grant funds up front, which is unheard of, right? Most of the grant programs in the state or city are reimbursable. And we thought it was important because we were going to be intentional in ensuring that minority, Black, women, people of color, small businesses have the capital up front. One, that they could directly acquire a property on their own without waiting for reimbursement or getting a hard money loan. They could participate in the tax sale foreclosure so that, reputable developers are acquiring these properties at tax sale foreclosure, as I like to say, or they could grant that money to the city or state for condemnation or eminent domain. And so, in participation with the city, one of the things that we do is we grant money to the city to acquire properties through condemnation, eminent domain, or eminent foreclosure. Just recently, Commissioner Allie Kennedy let us know that she acquired 23 properties between the 27 and 2900 block on our behalf. And then what we'll do is convey those properties to developers, free and clear title, no acquisition costs, and then developers will get somewhere between $75 to $100,000 of development subsidy to develop those properties, which is about 50% of the total development costs in that area, right? And it helps because you can only sell some of those houses for around 250 to 275,000. But in addition to that, a homeowner can purchase that home for another 25 or $50,000 in down payment assistance. So you're thinking about it, you're almost up at $150,000 in subsidy for homes in West Baltimore. Like, you can't beat that deal anywhere in the country, right? You can't compete with that deal. But in a partnership, like in a partnership with our federal delegation, we did a $2 million match that Chris Van Holdens did for a makerspace to set up on the Walbrook Mill site. We're actually we're building our offices also. We're in discussions to bring Charm City TV to West Baltimore and set that up. Just this week, we awarded $1 million to Blank Slate Development and MCB Realty to acquire a site for a grocery store. And so all of those things are important. And, one thing about MCB Realty, most people don't know, is one of the largest real estate developers in the country, right? David Bramble lives right off of West North Avenue in the same house he grew up. His mom and dad raised him in, right? And people don't think about, all they think about is the negative of Baltimore. But those same people that are watching news on the TV are probably watching news in an office suite that David Bramble built somewhere in this country, because it's only like 5 states that he don't have no properties in,
Yeah.
right? But that's
Yeah.
that's what West Baltimore is about.
Yeah, I love MCB and Dave, so it's almost unfair for me to co-sign on that because the level to which people don't understand
Mm,
how amazing it is that as he and MCB Real Estate have done great things all over the country, that he's very intentional about coming back home, right? And those
yep.
projects tend to be harder, might not have as big of a spread, and might not have, those financial benefits in the same way as other places, because Baltimore can be challenging at every level. But he cares and loves about Baltimore. Like it's great when we have so many passionate people and who do great work to actually be here and invest here. So, um, and he has quite a bit along West North Avenue because he lives
Yeah,
there.
he
He's
has
invested
Reservoir.
in what's going on there.
Yeah, he got Reservoir Square, putting up townhomes there, apartments. Like I said, we helping with a grocery store, and the mayor's office of employment is going to have their offices right there
Yeah.
at that site. And it's a site that's like 2 blocks from where he lives. So every time he gets out of the house, he's seeing that site where he's put up a significant amount of his personal money to make this happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's great to see that. And what I love about what you guys are doing is it's not just the housing, it's also the commercial stock. And so you mentioned bringing a grocery store, which is huge.
Hmm.
You mentioned having your office spaces there. Kind of how are you balancing the housing and the commercial businesses, entrepreneurship? How are you kind of bringing all of those different things to West North Avenue? And what do you see? What's your vision with that for what things are going to look like in the future?
Yeah, so in our comprehensive plan, I think we have like pockets. We have like 8 kind of districts of pockets, and so I can run through that. So like the 31 to 3200 block is a commercial area where we want to bring a grocery store. That's closer to West North Avenue and Hilton Parkway, in that area where the Enoch Pratt Library is. And then when you get to like the 27 to 2900 block, that area is 95% vacant and block, 3 blocks of vacancy, right? And so on the northbound side of West North Avenue, maintaining those single family homes as is 2-story, maybe commercial or retail at the bottom. But then on the southbound side, we have that beautiful architectural facade of these 3-story houses, right? Turning those into either large single family or multi-family or commercial at the same time. So you have like that mixture of what U Street used to be when I was a kid, where you had residential and commercial. Now it's just commercial and retail, but a
Mhm.
mixture of residential and commercial at that site. And then the same thing when you get closer to the Ahmad Center around our entrepreneur area, where we're looking at entrepreneurs owning spaces, having commercial and retail. And then closer towards West North Avenue, McCullough, that could be a really commercial retail area for restaurants, right? Everybody knows what a car wash is, all right? And so we'll be talking about that very soon about how we're looking at the site plans and development of the car wash site. So in that mixture, it's really about these distinct zones, where people, like, we serve 16 neighborhoods, and that's the challenge in
Yeah.
itself to get it right. But what we want to do is make sure that each distinct neighborhood along West North Avenue has something that reflects their unique character. And so some people were heavily on residential, some people were heavy on commercial and retail, some people wanted a mix, some people wanted to live, work, play. And then, like, when you get to West North Avenue and Penn North, we have concepts of bringing a movie theater there, a container park. I kind of stole that from my time in Vegas, but it's a cool, funky container park. A container park there on North Avenue, adaptive reuse, repurposing that area for transit oriented development. And to prepare that, we funded a clean and green team. If you drive down now West North Avenue in Penn, it's totally clean. People are totally shocked on how it looks, and we have unarmed security. And so that's something that, I talk about how downtown partnership gets stuff like that. John Hopkins gets stuff like that. Why can't West Baltimore have the same type of clean and security services that these other entities in Baltimore have?
Yeah, it's so I always get amped up when I talk to you and talk about WANADA because there are so many there's so much being invested downtown, obviously, right? You have
Mhm.
East Baltimore and the anchor of Hopkins and what that means and has meant for East Baltimore when it comes to economic development. And for me, what West North Avenue does, or one of the many things West North Avenue does, is to create that anchor in West Baltimore that we haven't really seen to do this much when it comes to impact and opportunity. And that's for the number of reasons that we could probably spend a whole other couple days talking
So,
about.
yeah,
but like there's no doubt, right, that West North Avenue, North Avenue area has faced a lot of economic and social challenges. And
yeah,
so, when you have this big, amazing, ambitious goal, which, funded the way you guys are funded, right? We're positioned to really actually make that stuff happen. But what do you
yeah.
see as the biggest obstacles that you're working through to navigate on, addressing some of the challenges that West North Avenue's had over the past?
Yeah, it's the same obstacle I had when I came in on day one, and people ask me, and I think is residents' timelines for expectation, because they have just been so neglected for so long, right? And the first year was pretty challenging. Like, everybody just wanted something to happen like immediately. And now, I mean, you've been to our comprehensive planning sessions. Like, I think we do a really great job. I ain't gonna say we rock stars, but the thing is that, in comparison to other state and city agencies and how they get beat up, Kyra, we don't get beat up, right? And it's because we've been honest with the community from day one. Like, this is going to take a long time process. Here's the timeline for when you're going to see effective change. But at the same time, there are certain neighborhoods that we're not going to be able to touch along West North Avenue because we have to be strategic and not just funding projects, but we're funding neighborhoods with projects within them, right? That's a difference. Like, the city and state are set up to fund projects. Like, they get an application and they fund that best application for a project, whatever that project is. Now, they might have like certain kind of investment zones where people get certain points, but it's still a project. And what we're doing is we're funding right now in Coppin Heights. That's our neighborhood, right? Now we're going to be funding in Easterwood and Mondawmin. That's where we're focused at. Next is just Reservoir Hill. And then we'll do some more neighborhoods. But we are funding neighborhoods, not projects. And neighborhoods is a composite of housing, commercial, economic, retail, transportation, green space. I talked to the residents of Sandtown, Winchester, one of the most neglected neighborhoods in all the state of Maryland, right? Just totally neglected for years. And there was this 10-year-old girl who asked me two questions. She asked, one, is the project y'all talking about now, at Sandtown, Winchester, your biggest project? And I said, no. I talked to her about the Walbrook Mill site. But her last question was heartfelt disturbing. She was like, well, what are y'all going to do about the street lighting? And you think about that, right? Like, this 10-year-old girl probably gets on the bus with her moms. Her mom's is just trying to make ends meet. Um, and she goes downtown to the harbor, or she goes into the White L, or she goes near Johns Hopkins, and she sees street lights, right? She not standing at a red light forever on certain
Right.
intersections. Like, she just noticing certain things like that. And for that 10-year-old girl to notice that at that age, think about someone who's in their 30s and 40s that had to continue to deal with that for their entire life.
Yep.
Right. And so that's the driver that we have at WNADA, to make sure that everybody's special. Like, half of my team are native Baltimoreans. I believe half of them, or more than half of them, have graduated from HBCUs. So, like I said, not only intentional in how we're giving out money and procuring contract, we're intentional in the individuals that we're hiring that reflect the community and will be champions of the community.
I love that. I love that. So, knowing like the areas that you guys are focused on, and the impact zones that you all have created,
Hmm.
obviously you're investing in developers and folks that can really help with that neighborhood strategy. But there's going to be some investors that kind of are coming in, they just only want to do onesies or twosies, right? They just want to kind of get in, and add some value, but potentially just get up out of there, right? So for those looking to get involved in the West North Avenue area, right, and you're in catchment area, what advice would you give, whether they're working through WANADA directly or not?
Yeah, so my biggest advice would be to complete the grant application. Like, I think our grant application is very simple. I mean, in comparison to what you have to compete at city DHC or state DHCD, I think people get intimidated because we're a state agency. But as you know, the application is really user friendly, right? And so you just got to get in the door. Number one, I like meeting with folks. Coffee, tea, dinner, lunches, breakfast. But that ain't gonna get you a grant after no grant funding, right? Or meeting with Antonio Hayes, Senator Antonio Hayes. That's not gonna get you funded, right? You got to fill out the grant application because that starts the dialogue for us, right? Now, if you're just a small developer, like this grant cycle, we will be awarding some grants that are between 75 and $150,000, just so a person can get their first start of developing that one house, right? We're just not saying that everyone is going to get a $250,000 grant or a $500,000 grant, but we might team you up with individuals who all got $75,000 grants within one particular block that we've acquired or is going to be going through MREM foreclosure. But I think you just got to fill out the application. And if there's some errors in the application, we work with you, we answer the questions, but we can't start that process until you finish the grant application. So that's the first thing I say. Second thing, if you're still intimidated about not filling the grant application, I think you got to sign up on our website, come to our meet and greet, meet developers like you and your husband, and talk and partner with them and other developers that are teaming up at WANADA to help us and partners in this revitalization. And then the third thing is that come to our meet and greets. Like our meet and greets are really the catalyst. I remember when you first came to the very first one. I just came to Baltimore, and we had it at Alex Aaron's blank slate office. Like now we do meet and greets, and now we doing it at the Garden Rooftop Club and Lounge. You know what I'm saying, or the Manor. So we've really grown, and if you think about it, actually deals get done and people are more comfortable around people that look like them and making these deals happen. I'm thinking about, as I'm talking about that, I'm thinking about in the next few weeks, I'll be a panelist on the Baltimore Together Summit, right? And one of those things is my team, and I'm sure I've talked to y'all too about it. I hate those things, right? Everybody's there just to be seen. But one thing you don't see is the people actually doing the work, right? The people who are actually out there grinding every day, addressing these vacant homes, they ain't got time to be at the Baltimore Together Summit to listen to other people talk, right? Um, and for me, it's about how do I more engage with those folks that are doing the work that are just unseen. That small developer that has to take out a hard money loan because they ain't got time to network to get a $40,000 grant or a $250,000 grant from JP Morgan, right? Their time is their money. Right? And so I try to make the playing field fair at our state agency because I want to keep those factors in the back of my mind that everybody can't attend the Baltimore Together Summit and be connectedly known.
Yes, absolutely. I will say I spoke at Baltimore Together last year, so I'm glad you're
Yes.
going and going to be there. I think I actually shouted y'all out on stage last
Yes, you
year, but I'm
did. You
glad
did.
that you
Yeah.
guys will be there. But you're right, right? And so we work with a lot of those brand new, just getting started investors or people who are trying to grow and scale, and um, you know they're grinding, they work full time, they're trying to get going so that they can make a more and a bigger impact. And so being connected to organizations like yours becomes a critical pathway to be able to be more effective and focus
Yeah.
on doing great work and not trying, not needing to, you know, scrape and crawl on trying to get a lender to even believe in the neighborhood in the first place, which
Right.
again is a whole nother
Exactly.
conversation that we could spend all kinds of time on. um, so tell me if you can think of a lesser known aspect or project or something you guys are involved in that maybe people don't know about. What does the public not know that y'all are doing behind the scenes?
Wow. So I was trying to keep this a little secret for a while, but um,
Just between friends.
and about a million of your followers. So look, yeah, so we actually just purchased the Greenwood towing site.
Okay.
Or West, yes, 56,000 square feet, which is probably the largest vacant property in Baltimore City now after David Bramble's Reservoir Square site and maybe the Super Block. So we purchased that site. We are going to be working with the city to acquire the remaining kind of small parcels that outline that entire 1,300 block. And what we want to do is issue a RFP for trans-oriented development, and look at that as a subsidy. You know, the Greenwood towing site has been an African American towing site owned by the Greenwood family for 70 years, right? So to me, it's you asked earlier about things that I learned growing up in DC, right? So to me, even though I'm not from Baltimore, I know how sentimental that is to folks, just like the car wash, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for me, it's intentional that we make sure that a state agency that's led by people that reflect Baltimore have an impact in the legacy of African American property and ownership, right? And so for us, it wasn't just about getting that property so that we could develop. It was making sure that we honored the legacy of the Greenwood family,
I
right?
love that.
And then also taking that legacy and moving forward to show, hey, this is what your family purchased 70 years ago, and now look what it's done, right? Look how it's, you planted the seed for the contribution for the revitalization of the African American community 70 years ago. And we're going to honor that in some way on the development of that site. So those are families that don't get recognized because Google wasn't around back then, as I tell
Right.
people, or social
Right.
media. Everybody wants to be the first to something, right? But nobody would know about the Greenwood family. So that's what I would say. That's going to be very impactful. That's the block that everyone's place is on. The Teeth is the largest black book distributor in the entire country,
Yeah.
right there on West North Avenue, right? If you buy a black Afrocentric book from Amazon, more than likely you got it from the Teach Bookshop on West North Avenue. So you
Yeah.
think about stuff like that. And so we want to make sure that we can honor and preserve stuff.
That's so important. I love that. And sometimes there's all that. That's kind of what I think of when I talk about the charm in Charm City.
Hmm.
A lot of those stories are right the charm in Charm City. That's what makes Baltimore and West Baltimore and West North Avenue what it's all about. It's the history, it's the people, it's what they built, it's the culture and all the things that come from it. And so I love that you guys are so intentional about that. That's amazing. And I'm sure a lot of people didn't know those tidbits of information, right? But if you're
Yeah.
of West North Avenue, you're of West Baltimore, if you're from Baltimore, you right, you know it, but you don't. You sometimes we overlook it, and so
Yes.
I'm excited to highlight that. So when you think about all the things that you're working on and what NADA is working on, and the vision and the plan and the comprehensive plan you guys put together, what are you most excited about in your opportunity now to keep that charm in Charm City?
Woo. I want in 15 years, or at least 20 years, right? I want people to look back and hopefully find me on my rocking chair on my boat, because I talk about being on my boat and retiring real soon. I want people to say 15 to 20 years from now, when they come to Baltimore, where are you hanging out at? Oh, I'm going to West North Avenue. Instead of saying, oh, where are you hanging out? Oh, I'm hanging out downtown. I'm hanging out at the harbor. I'm hanging out at Federal Hill. I'm hanging out at Fells Point. I want 15 years. I want that psychic for people that fly into Baltimore to the convention center, right? And say, yo, where are we hanging out? Oh, I'm driving up to West Baltimore. You coming? That's what I want. That's what I want to feel. So I want somebody to come and hit me in my when I'm elderly and be like, "Yeah, they talking about going up to West Baltimore now."
I love that. That's powerful. I love that. I love that. And I think people really need to understand how big that vision is. That and when we talk about WANADA, how big that vision is and the opportunity, and really, as we talk about the history, understand what West North Avenue was.
Yeah.
And so that's powerful. Is there anything else you want to make sure folks know and understand and are prepared for with WANADA?
Um, Not too much. What I will say is, I still got to do my little public administrator role kind of thing. Got to the oddball in the West administration. But one thing I will say is that Senator Antonio Hayes has just been a great champion for WANADA. Governor Wes Moore, former Lieutenant Governor Boyd Rutherford before the administration transferred over. So from Governor Wes Moore, Senator Antonio Hayes, Delegate Marlon Ambry, and Melissa Wells, and former Lieutenant Governor Boyd Rutherford. I just want to thank them for allowing me to be free. They give me a lot of freedom to just be creative, be innovative, and just be myself. You seen I don't do a whole lot of the public administrator kind of role type stuff, but they allow me just to be myself and be to really truly operate as the state's venture capital entity. All right, I can get suited up when I need to, but I really enjoy and then Dr. Jenkins, president of Coppin State, was the chair of the authority. All five of them, all of them that I mentioned, have just really given me and my team the freedom to succeed, fail, pivot, re-engage, and then accomplish. Right. And we keep doing it on a day to day, month to month, and we're going to do it on a year to year basis. And so I just want to give all of them a shout out and, just thank you for that. And then people just need to get involved. That's all I'll always say, because they're going to miss out,
Yeah,
you know, whether
because the
you're
train is
in the
moving.
Oh yeah, whether you're in the area, whether it's all of the viewers who watch all of the videos and helps about getting into real estate, think about coming and investing in Baltimore. One of the challenges I'll be given pretty soon is I'm going to be traveling across the country for the administration and talking about Black businesses reinvesting in Black Baltimore. All right. You think about some of the challenges in some of the red states with social issues, right? The question is, as a person of color, as a woman, do you still want to live in those states, right? Where you can come to a city, reinvest your Black wealth. Atlanta is a mecca, but, do you want to live in a comfortable state where you can invest that, right? Where you feel protected, where your choice of life is protected, right? And your ability to choose what you want to do with your own body is protected, right? And so I think all of those things are important for people of color, for immigrants who want to immigrate to this country, and provide support to our economy. Like, we have a lot of vacancies. We have 15,000 VBNs, but that's probably like 35,000 in true terms, right? And we got houses to fill. We got a whole lot of businesses, right? Baltimore will will always be a cultural rich African American city by its history, right? But at the same time, we have to be just as inviting of other people to make sure that our city grows without losing our cultural legacy. And that's the balance that I hope that people take away in looking at Baltimore.
Absolutely. The opportunities here, we have the room for growth, right? Baltimore's open for business, is what I've heard
Yeah,
some folks say in politics. I think Governor Westmore was saying that. But yes, I'm excited. Kudos to you. I know it's been a time over the last year or two to get off the ground and get
yeah,
things going, but I'm excited about the vision, and thank you so much for sharing that vision with us today.
yeah.
So thank
My
you
pleasure.
all for joining Keeping the Charm in Charm City, and we'll talk soon. Bye.